Welcome everyone to the Hoops Boys Pod. It's your host with the most, Jet, and my partner CProc. Shout out to our guest spurts, Greg and Shad. And today we have a very special Hoops Boys Pod, one of my favorite times of the year, draft time. And you know, why not get started by talking about someone touted to be the greatest prospect ever, Victor Wembanyama, and his fit with the Spurs. I want to know if this is like the type of person that the Spurs can nurture and make him into a player just as great as Tim Duncan or David Robinson, because he fits that mold. He's a 7 foot plus big that has that can do everything on the floor, shoot the three, handle the ball like a guard, move like a guard for that matter, defend. Have the Spurs got lightning in the bottle with this pick. Even though it hasn't happened yet, it's kind of like a foregone conclusion. Shad, let's start with you.
Oh yeah, it's definitely a foregone conclusion for the cheating Spurs. Um, no, I think it's a excellent, kind of fit for him. He's not going to be expected to win right away. They've clearly been like the worst team over the past 4 or 5 years. They don't have many pieces anymore around in San Antonio. So they're going to kind of build this team over scratch over the next, probably 2 or 3, 4 drafts and put some good pieces around him. He has an excellent Hall of Fame coach. I'm not sure how long he will stay, but he has, a great resource, to, help him, reach his potential. I think he probably would also, I'm not sure if he's still on the coaching staff, but he has access to Tim Duncan, one of the greatest, big men of all time. He certainly, has more potential than Tim Duncan is. I think Tim Duncan, didn't have nearly as much athleticism as Wembanyama, and I think, but Wembanyama could have, pretty much all the skills Duncan has. So I think, like I said, I think this might be kind of a perfect fit. When you kind of think about it, more in depth. Like I said, he has the Hall of Fame, coach. He has, the resources to pass great big men, and he has a team that's not going to be reliant, is not expected to win anytime soon. So he can kind of take his time and develop, in a couple years from now, and then be a real, true superstar who could lead his team, into championship contention.
Agreed. Greg, how do we feel about Victor Wembanyama and his fit with the Spurs?
Yeah, I mean, they say in life timing is everything. The Spurs definitely have it. I mean, there's zero question to this. I mean, there's some scouts saying even more than LeBron, he might be the most talented kid they've ever seen. I mean, to hear that type of comparison, to even start with, tells you all you need to know. I think the Spurs are going to break the record for quickest to the podium at the draft to announce that first pick. There's zero question. The brief tidbits you've seen from him, highlights, over in France. I mean, it's crazy to think of a 7'3" guy who literally not just some big guys like I'll get on Karl-Anthony Towns or people like that, settling for outside jump. This kid legitimately can handle the ball. He legitimately can shoot. It seems like the only issue whatsoever for him, for anyone that big will be health, I've read reports how they basically have like a foot doctor, and literally they're like trying to train his feet because they're worried with big men. There's so many foot injuries that derail their careers. So they're already taking a very proactive approach. And I think obviously that's the only, he'll health aside, he'll turn that franchise around in a second, and I don't think it'll take long either for, as Chad alluded to, they're going to be starting over scratch, but you're going to have players who are going to want to go play with him. I don't think the players in the league it's not going to take them long to realize that this kid is a special talent and probably a great future ahead of them. So yeah, San Antonio, it's no shock their season ticket sales went through the roof, and yeah, they got lucky again. There's no doubt about it. He seems to be the complete real deal.
Partner, any thoughts on Victor and the Spurs?
Part of me likes to wonder whether who has more luck in the draft, the Spurs or the Magic? Because the Magic seem to win the lottery more, but the Spurs, every time the Spurs win it, it's winds up being a Hall of Famer. So
It's the Spurs because of that, of course.
yeah, Wemby is very far off from that, of course. I mean, at 7'4" and 210, it seems a little light. So I don't know if there's a concern of him putting on weight, but I mean, if he's got perimeter skills, then maybe he can be someone like a Giannis as far as body type's concerned, where he doesn't necessarily have to be this big. It doesn't necessarily have to put on big postman weight on, and he can kind of be that tweener a little bit. But I mean, he certainly has the right guy to teach him. One of Shad's favorites, Greg Popovich, who's now, has a lot on his resume as far as grooming up Hall of Fame big men. So it certainly has the right coach by history's standard to show him the ropes and get him where he needs to be. I mean, just the little blurb on the mock draft is the upside of a 7'4" Kevin Durant on offense, which is absolutely terrifying, and a mixture of Anthony Davis and Rudy Gobert defensively. So he's a shutdown shot blocker, and he's an unguardable offensive machine. Yeah, that's extremely terrifying. Next up in the mock draft is an interesting pick. Charlotte's slated at number 2. They are projected right now to take Scoot Henderson, who left high school, didn't go to college, didn't go international, just floated around the G League. And being a point guard, being an explosive point guard, this is interesting to me because I don't know whether it's the Hornets just having insurance for LaMelo Ball, because we know he has some serious issues with staying on the court, or are they starting to be a little, okay, maybe, LaMelo's great, is extremely talented, but maybe he's not the guy. Maybe we just start having a backup plan for our franchise. Greg, what's the thought process in your mind as far as Charlotte taking another point guard?
I personally would not. I know you hear reports about, this kid. I even saw something that a scout said he could be better than Wembanyama. That's all great and dandy. I don't see when you have. I saw enough out of Brandon Miller myself at his 1 year at Alabama, and it seems like the legal thing is pretty much behind him. It's been agreed he's not going to be charged. Doesn't seem to be an awful kid. Seems like a wrong place, wrong time, poor decision. But anyway, I think for the fit on Charlotte, the pick would be Miller to me. We've seen him more on a bigger stage against the better college kids. Scoot provides an unknown quantity at basically the same position as Mel Ball. I understand you can say, oh, you have 2 great guards, but Charlotte's a long ways away. I see Miller as being a 2-way. I think Miller could be a superstar. So just me personally, I'd be shocked if they do go Henderson. A lot of these teams float rumors, and I'm not saying it is pure speculation, but they do that to see possible movement, what types of trades they can make. For me, it's Brandon Miller at number 2, and I feel like it's far more of a short thing, and I think he's a superstar in the making. I feel I'd know more about him. I'd go Brandon Miller.
Chad, to that point, what direction do you think Charlotte should go?
I disagree with Greg. I think they should pick Scoot Henderson, and the reason being because I think he's good trade bait. You've been hearing these reports lately that you hear a team like New Orleans is high on Scoot Henderson, so you draft or you definitely make it seem like you're going to pick Scoot Henderson, and then what you can maybe make a trade for like Zion or somebody like that, or a package for Brandon Ingram. Bring more excitement to your organization right away. He seems like the prospect people are trying to trade up to get. So I feel like you could either use them, and they'd be try to create a great 1-2 combo with him and LaMelo, or you use him as trade bait and you try to get, a couple pieces and some future draft picks, for somebody that you're trying to, call somebody's bluff on. So I think, Scoot Henderson is the right move for the Charlotte Hornets.
I could say there would probably be no more Charlotte thing for Charlotte to do than to acquire Zion and have two young, incredibly talented superstars, neither of which can stay healthy.
It would sell tickets, you know that.
It would.
Yeah, for 3 months.
Don't plan on going to Charlotte basketball.
Yeah,
after
you
Christmas.
better buy those tickets in the first quarter of the season. You might see Doc Rivers playing for Charlotte in the second half of the year.
Chad will be on his first plane ticket down. James and Jet, what you got on Charlotte's strategy? What do you think where do you think they should go?
Well, I feel like like you said, if they needed some insurance on LaMelo, like if they were afraid he's going to ask for a trade or potentially leaving, then yeah, draft Scoot. And I like Chad's idea of him being trade bait as well, because teams are lusting over him. But a part of me also agrees with Greg. I think Brandon Miller is the better pick. I think they have a lot of wings over there already on Charlotte, and they're gonna bring back I can't remember his name. Bridges. They're gonna bring back Bridges. They're gonna restructure his contract and bring him back. So that's another wing right there. So I mean, but Brandon is 6'9", so he can play 2 through 4. So I think he's the better pick for them, honestly.
Yeah, James, on your pick, just the other thing, and again, any of us to say it's harder to say, how much have you seen unless you're scouting the G League. But I just think Miller positionally fit wise, it makes perfect sense to me. You'd have a 1-2 combo right off the bat, not clashing positions either. But that's why I like Miller.
Well, speaking of Miller, in the mock draft, he's going number 3 to the Portland Trailblazers. He's a 3-and-D wing. He can fit a lot of places. I think this would be a great pick for them. Chad, how you feel about Brandon Miller going to Portland?
No, I think this is an excellent fit. Just because I think they need to move on from Dame. So Brandon Miller would be a great, person to start the franchise with when it starts over. Like I said, with Dame, you're already, not making a play-in game. You're 11th seed or worse. So you might as well start over. And instead of trying to, trade this number 3 pick and you maybe get like a Paul George or somebody that may bump you up into that lower playoff tier, but you're still not going to be real contenders. So I think Brandon Miller would be the pick. He could be like that franchise starter. They do have some young pieces I like, already Portland, like Anthony Simons, and they got Grant, and a few other people that they could use for the years leading up to it. In Portland, there's not much to do, so Brandon Miller, it doesn't seem like he could get any trouble up in Portland, like he did kind of in Alabama in that big college town. And they have Chauncey Billups, who seems to be like a young upcoming coach in the league. And like it's kind of like what I said with Wemby. You're not going to be expected to win right away. So you take a few years and build that team. I think they could be a real good team with the pieces they already have. And in a few years they might be like kind of like that Sacramento Kings type of team that just comes out of nowhere, and now they're going to be a contender.
Like the beam. Moving on from Dame. Wow.
It's time, man. It's time.
I think so too.
He sounds like he doesn't want to stay anymore either. Like before, he was like talking about loyalty. Now he's kind of throwing stuff out there here and there. So I think he's itching to go too.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, Greg, how do we feel about Brandon Miller and going to the Portland Trailblazers?
Well, obviously, as I just alluded to, I love Miller as a pro prospect. I think if he fell to 3, it's a no brainer in my opinion. The interesting thing is, so let me back up. So yes, to start off, Miller at 3. All things being equal, if he's there, no doubt about it, great fit with that team. I think Portland, something you guys just alluded to, is kind of the wild card in this whole draft. What do they do long term? And keeping Lillard is the biggest piece of this. So I think, could they deal this pick? It could go one or two ways here. Do they take someone like Miller or Henderson and say, all right, we're going to keep Lillard, or are they going to blow it up? It's tough to say. Are they going to trade the pick for a superstar and try and get him and Lillard together to have a title shot? So I think Portland poses the most interesting dynamic of the draft. The one thing I will say too, so let's say in my assumption, Miller did go 2. I think Henderson, even with Lillard, even though they're both guards as well, I think it makes more sense in that. Whereas I'd be concerned LaMelo and Scoot, like LaMelo's still young enough. Is there a power struggle to some point? Or who carries the ball? Who's the lead guard in a year or two? I think if it were Scoot and Lillard, if Lillard stays around, I don't think there'd be any question about that, right? It would be Lillard's team. So I think from that perspective, Scoot fits better, even being a per se lead guard with Damian Lillard. But again, if Miller falls to 3, I don't. They get to the podium almost as quick as San Antonio. I can't imagine them not. They'd have to grab him there. But again, Portland. Anyone's guess. They're probably going to be the most interesting team in the draft. I don't feel like anything's going to go status quo with them.
Especially if, as you think, Miller will be gone, then you open up that gray area as far as Lillard and then drafting Scoot as another point guard. And it's like, okay, well, now really what are they going to do? Do they just blow it up?
Yeah, and apparently there are teams who do think the world of Scoot. So you're right. That is a good point. So if it's then Scoot, will that propel Portland to say, well, we do trust him as our future franchise type guy, right? So that's why there are many variables with them. I'm very curious to see the direction they take.
Awesome. Partner, any thoughts on Miller? Or
I mean, I agree that he's definitely the prize after Wemby. I think either him going to Charlotte or Portland, I think he immediately fits into either team with the way their teams are constituted now. I know you were saying that Charlotte has a lot of wings and maybe Miller is kind of goes into a logjam there between Bridges and Hayward and all these other wing players. And Gary Terry, if he's back, I'm not 100% of his contract off the top of my head, but he plays more of a scoring guard than a point guard. So like I know that does kind of fit into a little bit of a logjam, but I mean Scoot's also a little bit of a logjam in of himself in Charlotte, and Miller going to Portland. If Miller will fall to Portland, that obviously entices Dame to stay. To me,
Yeah.
like that's a ready-made wing that can contribute right away, and gives Dame probably obviously his best sidekick since CJ was there, but CJ being effectively the same position as Dame, playing the same type of game, there was no diverse dynamic on the court. They were basically two guys playing the same thing. The only thing I wonder is if Portland is cursed, and if they draft another 3, are they dooming themselves to some bad agita and gonna relive the whole Brandon Roy situation too, and something weird is gonna happen with Brandon Miller, and they're gonna be like, oh no, here we go again. Portland can never get a high draft pick, right?
I think Chase, I think it's a good point. Something you brought up right there. I personally think that Miller is the more ready to go now guy as well. And that really is a factor on a team building concept now as well. Whereas Miller can go right in, and I think be it substantial. Miller to me, just my 2 cents. I'm not saying this is going to be a player of our time, but any team he walks into, he's going to be one of the most talented guys on that team. I don't care what the other wings are or whoever positions are, but he's definitely more ready to go. Where I wonder with Scoot, and again, I haven't seen too much of him, but you wonder, is there I get the feeling comparison wise, you hear like Jalen Green with Houston. No one's disputing the talent, may lead the league in scoring, but there may be more of a learning curve there, his adjustment to a higher level basketball. So I think that plays into this as well. So I think that's a good point. How ready is Miller compared to Scoot?
And from everything that I've read about Scoot's workouts for the teams that he's working out for, everybody's been highly impressed by him. So I think it's not, he is really good. It's not like just people gassing it up. He could really play.
No argument. No argument there for me. Let's have a little bit of fun. One of Shad's favorite players in the NCAA this year was Gradey Dick out of Kansas. Slated to go 11th to the Orlando Magic. Little quick hits from the blurb. Arguably the best shooter in the draft, has legitimate size, weighing in at 6'6", 204. That's almost as much as Wemby weighs. And he's in the mold of a more athletic Kyle Korver. Shad, is this a good spot with the Orlando Magic for your favorite player, Gradey Dick, to fall into?
I kind of say no, only because Orlando has a bunch of young players, and it is like you guys said, it's a logjam there. If I were Orlando, I would try to trade the pick, try to get a veteran. They need some veteran leadership. I know they got, players like Banchero. They got Jalen Suggs. They have, the Wagner brothers. I think they're brothers. I believe they have Bol. They have, Wendell Carter. It's just like they have a bunch of players that are good but not great. Maybe C+ to B players, with the exception of maybe Banchero. And I think that's kind of where Gradey Dick, kind of is. He's like a guy who probably at his, apex is probably going to be like that 4th or 5th starter. And if you're going to go like that on a mediocre team, you're just they're probably going to eventually draft people in your position. And in 2-3 years, you're going to just be a guy on the bench. So I think it might be better if he went to a team, kind of like the Lakers, a contending team he could probably play right away. He kind of fits that mold of like Austin Reeves, except he's, a little bit taller. Doesn't have to contribute like right away, but he can learn from all the pieces that are around him. And he'll probably be from day one, like, that 7th, 8th guy, coming, off the bench. He'd be like that 7th, 8th guy in the rotation. And then he could probably, end up starting, I don't know, if, due to injuries or something. So I don't think Orlando's a great pick for him, he just would, just be like another number, because it seemed like Orlando gets the same type of players every single year, and they just fall into oblivion after, a couple of years, because they're going to draft the same guy in the same position a year or two from now.
They do. Just waiting for the day when Amway Arena falls into the swamp.
Hey, don't they have a club under there?
I think you're right. They definitely have a brewery. I've been there.
Is it called the Swamp Club?
I don't know what it's called.
Greg, what you got?
So I'm I'm gonna be contrarian here. I'm a big fan of Gradey. I think he's going to outplay his draft position. I saw the Kyle Korver comparison. I flat out think he's going to be a better player than Kyle Korver. I know Kyle Korver could shoot the ball, but I mean Gradey, I feel like was just scratching the surface this year. Got his points easy. Didn't force the offense. And if I'm for Orlando, if I'm anyone around that, I'm taking him. The point is, when you're Orlando, for me, just using them as an example, you're not good enough to start playing whose position what. Gradey Dick's going to instantly improve that offense, the shooting. So I'm high on him. I think he's going to be, I don't mean the top 3 player in this draft, but if he gets drafted 11, 12, I think he's going to outplay that draft position over the course of his career. As you saw his one season at Kansas, he just kept getting better, better, and better. And the other thing, I always love about certain guys, as I said earlier, it wasn't forced. So, he took his shots in the flow of the offense. There was never there's many times he didn't see the ball too often. He wasn't forcing it when he got it. I think he's just he's a quick release. I'm very high on him. I think Gradey Dick will be one of the better players in this draft. I would predict him at some point to play in an all-star team. I don't think he's a reserve at all. I'm high on him. I think he's got a good career ahead of him.
And just like you say, if he's gonna have a better career than Kyle Korver lasted a long time.
No doubt. No, and what I do think about Gradey Dick is that Gradey, I think, will be the better overall player than Kyle Korver. Like I said, I think Grady's really just scratching the surface as an overall player. Obviously Korver could shoot the heck out of it, and so can Gradey. I think Grady's overall game will be better than Kyle Korver's. Yeah, we can mark that down. That'll be my draft guarantee.
Guarantee.
Yeah, no, but even Self had super high praise for him, and that again, one more time, that's why I liked him so much. He got his points when they were needed. He in the flow of the offense. He wasn't gunning. You never saw that at him. He seems like a very mature player for his age. Yeah, I predict a very good career for him, and a good fortune for whoever grabs him.
Partner, what you got?
To be completely honest, I haven't seen much of Gradey, but after reading about him, looking at his stats, seems like they call him the best shooter out the draft. Shot over 40% in his college career. So if he's not going to be, if anything, he can be a knockdown shooter for a team. So those guys last long in the league, and I think he'll last long in the league if he could shoot as well as he did in college.
James, a question. Let me ask you guys. I forgot, where did Corey Kispert get drafted? 13, somewhere around there. Anyhow, wherever Kispert got drafted, I saw someone compare that. It's probably because they're two white, really good shooters. Gradey Dick is going to be a lot better than he is. I can tell you that right now. He's not just some can't do anything else. Gradey Dick can play. He's a player. Sorry, yeah. Corey, no offense. I rooted for him, Gonzaga. He's better than Corey Kispert.
Corey got drafted 15.
15? Yeah. And that's not to cut on Corey, but he will be a better overall basketball player, I think, by a wide margin than someone like Corey Kispert. I saw that comparison.
Probably won't have any time fighting for minutes either.
Well, guys, I think we spoke about the lottery picks and all of the big names coming out of the draft, but I want to know if there are any dark horses, any guys that you see that haven't been talked about, but you think that would make an impact in the league right away. Greg, let's start with you. Any dark horses out there that you see that nobody's really talking about, but you think are going to make an impact in the NBA?
Dark horse. Well, okay, it depends what we determine. So, okay, I'm going to go to a UConn guy, obviously, Jordan Hawkins. Jordan Hawkins, I feel, when we're talking about great shooter, his jump shot is smooth as anyone out there. Now, Jordan Hawkins may take a longer time to fully acclimate his overall game. He's had issues ball handling, but I think I'm actually looking at a mock here where it has Jordan going to someone like the Lakers. He would be an amazing fit. So I think if Jordan Hawkins for the right team will be instant offense. He gets his shot off. He doesn't need much separation. Quick release. So Hawkins off the bat would be a kid that, again, he may even get drafted. His draft projections are now anywhere from lottery to mid 20s. I think Hawkins in the right spot with a good point guard where he's not expected to carry the team. I think he can be an instant contributor and instant offense for team. And I think someone like the Lakers would make perfect sense, actually. He would be a difference maker for the Lakers.
Nice. Jordan Hawkins. Shad, who you got up for a dark horse?
Well, Jordan Hawkins was actually going to be my pick. But I'll go with my second choice. It's going to be Nick Smith Jr. I think he's very athletic. With a point guard good size, about 6'5". I think he could be a legit scorer, 6-man like his second year in the league. I think he should, go high in the draft. I think he's one of those guys that just needs to, kind of shoot his way into the league and use his athleticism, and he needs to be on a team where he can really show it and can't be on like a contending team where he's going to get limited reps. But I think he has, he kind of reminds me of maybe a cross between Jordan Poole with a little bit of Ja Morant in a way. I'm not saying it's going to be like, like all-star caliber player, but just the way his athleticism is, his explosiveness, and he could shoot a little bit of too. I could see him, being a dark horse. His shot selection, needs to, be worked on, but I think that's part of his just charm. He's going to be probably reckless, and he may not be like a pure point guard, but he's going to be like one of those guys that has a high motor, and he's going to, have his off nights, but he's also going to have like those nights where, he looks like a, NBA All-Star.
Shad, and that, like, to expand on Shad, I'm totally with you on that one. And the main thing you have to know about Nick Smith, he was at this time last year projected to be top 3 or top 5 pick. There's only one reason he's not. He was hurt. He missed a ton of time at Arkansas. So he definitely, to Shad's point, that's a good one. He has the talent to do exactly that. Huge upside with him.
Pardon me.
Well,
you pick for a dark horse?
I don't want to sound redundant and say Jordan Hawkins again, but I will, to that point, I will say that seeing what the Lakers did with Austin Reeves down the stretch this year, I mean, if they wind up getting someone like Jordan Hawkins, that he basically fills exactly the same type of role. So that's a lot of, as like Greg said, instant offense. There's a lot of instant offense coming off the bench from that backcourt. But one spot after him, projected right now, is the NBA runner-up Miami Heat. And I didn't see a ton of Iowa games. I don't know if I saw any before the tournament, actually. Chris Murray, it looks like numbers-wise and description-wise, is a stretch 4. Averaged 20 points, just under 8 rebounds, and shot 33%, which is pretty good for a 4. And I feel like a stretch 4 is something that could really help out Miami, because Bam obviously is a guy that likes to stay in the paint and dominate, stay close to the basket. So I think someone that could like come down and spell him in the paint, but then also get out of there and give Bam room to operate. I think that would be a really nice type of player. So if I'm off base on Chris Murray and he's a bust, please tell me. But based on the stats and the description, that does sound like a pretty good fit for what Miami needs.
Chase, can I add one more? I want to go really dark horse here. There's a kid I watched. No, I'm serious, because this kid reminds me a little of Muhammad Gaye of Washington State. He's like a 6'10". The kid kind of like, he was like under the radar, and like towards the end of the year Washington State like almost played themselves into the tournament, like totally turned the team around. He has a Pascal Siakam feel to me. So just someone like that, long, athletic, and like he's just learning to play the game. That's someone I'm watching like in the second round. I think whoever grabs him, like he has a huge upside. Again, you never know with his prospects, a lot of hoops to learn, but he's someone to keep an eye on. Really rangy, super athletic. If he can polish his offensive game, he could be a player in the league.
Is he so raw that he's going to require to landing on a team with a developmental type coach?
I mean, yes. I mean, and there's a good chance there's a good chance he might even start in the G. Like if he gets drafted, he may not be in the league. But like you just see him at certain times in games. You know, when Tibbet, like Washington State wasn't that good this year. You know, so they're not on the rate. But when you watch them, there's periods of games you're like, you know, you watch a game and you're like, who is this kid? Just because he's making so many plays, like so athletic. So he's probably going to need time, developmental time. I don't see him cracking a rotation right off the bat. But I would be very surprised if this kid isn't a factor in a couple of years, even if just on the D end. But like I said, this is a kid to me who like just oozes potential. If you want to take that high ceiling pick, you know, kind of knock one out of the park in the second round, take that shot, he would be my guy.
How do you I was thinking about Keontae Johnson. I know he had like the little heart issue where he collapsed on the court, but the kid could play. I don't know if there's going to be a team that would take a chance on him though. That's my pick for a dark horse.
I'm surprised like nobody said like more UConn players like Sanogo or Jackson.
Well, I think so. I think Jackson is, I mean, crazy to say this, but I think Jackson is the more functional pro, to be honest, because Jackson athletically, Jackson carried the ball. Jackson can make an impact on a game without scoring at all, without shooting. Whereas Sanogo, I mean, I root for Sanogo, obviously. You almost worry he's a tweener at the next level. I mean, I do think, you know, he will find a role eventually and be an NBA player, no doubt. But you know where I mean with that. Whereas Sanogo, I don't know how that translates. Jackson cannot score at all, and he'll make a rotation off defense, rebounding, ball handling. You know, he's shot blocking. He can do the other things on an NBA court that most players cannot. So I actually think Jackson will be an excellent fit for someone if used the right way. You know, you can't expect him to come in and score 15 points. That's not going to happen. He'll offer the other stuff. Whereas Sanogo, you know, diligent worker, beast in the paint. I think he will improve and get better, but I do worry long term. Can Sanogo take a next step at his size? I wonder that. Jackson will make a difference.
Sanogo to me almost reminds me too much of another Ike Diagu, where the guy lasts forever in the league, but he's never really a prominent player because he's too small, too slow, you know, that sort of thing. I think he'll get by on grit though, and I don't mean to cut his talent either. It's just he is small, and at that next level, you know, he's not quick enough to be a three. He's not the size of a prototypical 4 in the NBA. But again, the kid can play. He's got an intense work ethic. I think he'll make a role for himself. He'll be in the NBA, I would think.
He could be better than a Festus Ezeli.
I haven't heard that name in a while.
Listen, I was like, wait a minute, what? I love Sanogo. Like I said, I look forward and hope he does. I'm just Festus Ezeli.
Festus Ezeli.
Wow.
Wasn't he like a Nigerian prince?
Was that a Warriors?
Is he?
I think so.
Nigerian prince. Calling you about your car's extended warranty.
I feel like Ezeli probably would make more money as a prince in Nigeria though than his NBA career. But anyway, I don't know the going rate for princes these days. I'll have to check it out.
Jet, to your point, the heart issues are scary. I mean, you don't know if somebody's going to be like Jeff Green, who can come back from something like that and still put in a lengthy, solid career, or, you know, be like Len Bias and just die. So that's definitely scary things to deal with a prospect.
Right, for sure. I think if somebody takes a chance on him, they're gonna get a good player.
Well, thanks to all the loyal audience for taking a chance on us this year. 3 seasons in the books, gentlemen. Maybe we'll reconvene for a summer league game and see how all these picks stack up. But if not, enjoy your summers, and we'll see you again for more Hoops Boys in the fall. Am I right?
Hoops Boys.
Stay tuned to the exclusive home of the Hoops Boys podcast, YouTube. Subscribe, like, hit that notification bell, all that jazz. And send us some messages on Twitter and Instagram at Hoops Boys Pod. Let us know some picks for next year, some picks for the draft, whatever the case may be. One last time, hit me with that pass. Over.